Hey, Kevin, how the heck's it going? Ooh, look what we're doing.
Hey, Chris. Uh,
Oh, well, Claus, good God morning to you as well. Uh, love to see everybody coming in today. Uh, how you been doing this week, Kevin?
uh, I've been good. It's been another busy week, which is okay. I have some challenging projects going on, so I expect them to be busy for a while. But that's okay, right? Better than the alternative. So,
I
how
agree
about yourself?
completely. Uh, I have a book someplace. Huge fan of Ryan Holiday's "The Obstacle Is the Way." What you put in the fire feeds the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Concept of like whatever challenges are before us are our opportunities to make life better and do more with our lives. So
Yeah,
I
thank
always
you,
get
Chris.
excited when I can switch that paradigm from "oh no, what do we have going on" to uh, "oh hey, look at this great new opportunity to do things." So. Uh,
Yeah, a lot of times it's just how you want to frame things, right?
right.
Have been having some of those conversations with our kids and things that that have upset them this week, and my wife's really big on that. I listen to her conversation with them, and her first thing is, "Hey, how can we frame it?"
Yeah.
Jack
Yeah.
says my microphone is not getting picked up.
You're getting a little echo. You have a little echo that has picked up all of a sudden. So
Okay.
maybe take a look into that. Want to say good morning to Jack, Christian, Hassan, Jewel, Power Egg. Yeah, I know you're coming from Germany, Power Egg. So thank you for joining us on.
Oh wow.
I think my math is right. This must be near the end of your workday, or you're already in happy hour and you're sitting in a pub in Germany watching us there. That that'll be. Thank you for joining us. And so for the people over on LinkedIn, thank you for connecting with us there too. Just as a heads up for everyone on LinkedIn, there has been some spotty outages and back and forth there. I've noticed in the past couple of weeks. So if you get disconnected, we are over on YouTube. You can head over and find us there, kratosbi.com. Live stream is live over there, just as an awareness for you guys. Okay. Nissan, Isa, welcome. How the heck are you guys doing today? Um, so, this is something I want to hear from in chat. You know, what is it in fabric that you guys have questions on today, or you've been thinking about? Love to hear from you guys about what things you like or don't like, or what what questions you have. I know Nisam has a great question. We're going to be getting to that in just a little bit. Quick though, before we do that, I just want to hit on a few items we have here. So we will be following Guide to the Cube rules or Roche rules. So rule number one: please prefix all questions with a Q, so we
Mhm.
can get them queued up, and so it's easy for us to like go back to them. The chat does go by kind of quick, and we don't have a paid staff for anything that tracks these things.
At least
So
not yet. We're going to open up the position
yes,
though.
at some point in time, we'll be look. We are evaluating when we open up a position. But for the time being, moderators, please, if people are repeating questions or spamming questions or posting inappropriate things or anything like that, moderators can put you in a timeout, and they will. So let's not get into any of that stuff. So hopefully we can avoid all of that stuff. But if you do want to support us and you want that actually paid position to be there, buy a Fabric Friday T-shirt. Helps the channel and stuff. So
Look like
I can
this.
guarantee every penny that is you send into support just goes to us producing more and more content. So super excited about that. For example, if you didn't join us on the Wednesday live stream, Christina was doing a demo of going through CI/CD concepts and integration with Git. She was having some challenges because she didn't have a non-work or non-production premium capacity she could deploy to. Uh, we have one that we're leveraging, and so that it's coming out of the funds that we get here. So she was actually able to do that. And we have another demo from her next week because she had access to that. She blew out her entire presentation because there's so much to show. So she'll be back on Wednesday next week. So.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to her follow up. I know her and I had a little discussion with me in the chat at that point, so I need to reach out to her this weekend too. But
awesome.
Great, starting point. It's great that you're able to put her back in again this week and follow up on the mini series like you're talking about. Everybody should join in. If you haven't really started to understand what the integration could do for you and everything else, now's the time, right? Kind of get in, look at it. I have one client that is, allows me to use preview features and everything, that I'm already using it for how I do their whole deployment and everything. So I love it.
Yeah, and honestly, this has been a huge thing that has been going on. I mean, Kevin and I, we've been on this journey with Power BI and now Fabric for I know, like I think over 10 years we've been working in this space. That was the biggest challenge, right? Like, how do we integrate Git with this? How do we integrate code management? How do we do that stuff? That has always been a challenge. There wasn't a great way to do that, right? At the start, there's like almost no way, right? Like you're just like, save a copy of the file, right? Like that was like, I can remember having naming conventions for how you'd name that file over and over again, and you'd have terabytes of
people out of that.
Well, once you work in a pattern, it's hard to
break. Yeah, it's hard to what is it? Move somebody's cheese, right?
Right.
Wisconsin would say.
Yeah. And Gary is mentioning on LinkedIn. As I've kind of mentioned, this LinkedIn video and live streams has had issues. If you guys are having issues, head over to YouTube. Apologies. If you work in Microsoft and you know the LinkedIn people about why their streaming stuff is freezing and whatnot, let us know, because what the heck, guys. But we got David Johnson joining us from Apple Valley, Minnesota. Welcome, David.
Nice.
What's that?
I said nice. Is that your neck of the woods?
That is fairly close.
Closer than my neck of the woods.
That is exactly right.
Stella's closer to me. So,
let us know where you guys are from in the chat, because it's not just for us as to why, like we want to see where the community is from. So even if you've posted it before, let us know in the chat. Let everyone know where you're from, so we could see that, while the world is a big place, we are a small community that this data connects people across all borders, across all boundaries, and we're happy to help make those connections here. So, holy cow! And Christian, I just noticed, posted that you had a Bogdan on your pug, so that is fantastic. Christian, is that available for a rewatch any place? Because I got to tell you, if you ever have the chance to talk with Bogdan or anyone on Bogdan's team, that's your priority, right? Drop the other things that are going on. Stop that podcast. Stop that audiobook, right? Like, even if you're watching our show, watch it on reruns, pause this, come back later, right? You can
watch Bogdan on rerun.
Yeah.
We want the chat. The chat keeps us going, everybody. So
that is very true. So, all right. Oh, look at that. We have Cottage Grove, Wisconsin. That is just down the road from me.
Man.
Yeah.
All right. I got to go start advertising on the electrical poles. I'll put flyers up around Dallas so I can get more people from Texas.
Yeah. Well, all we have is Stina. So.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. UK. Oh, Poland.
Nice. So Venezuela, did you get
for a little while? I don't know what was happening, but to all my Polish fans out there, like at one point in time, you were 14% of my YouTube viewership. I have no idea what happened. Like, I had this crazy spike and run for the longest time of people from Poland. I don't know if I hit on a topic or I was making some joke that people in Poland thought was hilarious, but like people in Poland were like 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 my number two, number three um country watching my content. So
The power of networking, right? The
yeah.
power of networking. It's just somebody, there are a couple people over there liked it, started spreading the name, and it's
Yep.
amazing. All right,
Yep.
so we ran the rules, right?
Yep.
We
We
ran.
ran the rules and we've been doing the chit chat now. Kevin, you've been doing some work. Hang on. Should we answer a couple of these questions first or
Yeah, I saw a couple of questions as well. Let's kind of just introduce the first two uh, links that I
oh,
provided to
okay.
you. Right, we'll do that real quick. Kind of talk about what's back out there. If you want to share my screen, we'll do this
Yep,
one
yep, yep, yep,
first.
yep, yep. Let's hit into this
Um,
quick.
this was, to me again kind of interesting, and then I shared the link with Chris the other day, and then we were talking before the stream, and he goes, "Hey, isn't this what I started?" But we thought it was still good to kind of remind everybody that there is great learn content out there. The reason this popped up again for me this week is somebody put a comment out about it on LinkedIn, talking about how good the learn content is and training and getting into all of this, right? So don't forget about this. This is kind of where I think Fabric Fridays got its start. Chris started going through some of these things. I joined him on a whim. We started talking about all the different parts of it. Um, we might get back and kind of grab a couple of sections in the future and use it as another episode to walk through the learning. I know some people really like that, right? But make sure you go through these learning modules. And I have no insight into this, but my suspicion is if there becomes an exam, for a certification, it's going to be based upon this learning content. That tends to be how Microsoft seems to do it. So, there's 9. Let me go all the way back to the top. Sorry, scrolling quickly. Right, they estimate it to take about 9 hours. So that's a lot of learning that you can do, and it hits on all parts. So, Chris, have you done anything more on this than from when you first got started with it?
So I have not. I will post a link to. It's actually one of my biggest videos that people are just watching over and over again. So I really got to get back to it, but or at least one of my I don't know if you could hear that or not. But yeah, it's one of my bigger bigger videos. I'll share that out in just a second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
And I see Power Egg, I guess is, do we reckon that there will be an associate certificate? I think there will be at some point, right? The steps that it has to go through is you have to first get to GA, right?
Yep.
Microsoft will not do any certificates on things that's in preview or include anything that's in preview on the certification test. So there may even be multiple certifications, right? There is a lot to learn here,
Mm-hmm.
and there would be a lot to test on. So if you look at the structures that they have currently for what was kind of considered the Power BI part of it, right, where they started out with, what did they first call it? Just the DA 100, right? And that focused only on the Power BI part of it. And then they renamed that, changed it a little bit. What is that? The PL 300, I think.
Yep.
Sorry if I get my numbers wrong. And then they added a more of an enterprise one, PL 500, if my memory works this morning. So, I would kind of see maybe the same progression on this side. They may start with something that's a little bit kind of all encompassing, but it won't go real deep into it. And you get some type of, starting point, like fundamentals, right? Look at all the Azure certificates and how they kind of have a fundamentals and they get deep into each area. that could be a pattern that they follow as well. I'm sure they're talking about all of this, and we'll
So
expose it as we go
I
forward.
know they are, and if you actually watch the Learn One content that is on my YouTube channel, Shannon Lindsay, who's actually in charge of
Mm-hmm.
writing the Learn content, um, they are heavily involved in that. And she says, "Oh, it's going to be a while. They've got a lot to do to get the stuff out there. We won't see that till like October, November, December of this year. Will we see information on that content and make that available?" So,
Yeah,
uh,
Shannon's great. If you ever
yeah,
get a chance to talk with her, great person.
yeah,
Super
do
sweet.
so. That's
Yes.
she is a good person to connect with and get out on. And I do want to point out that Mark Walters is pointing out that there is an AI challenge that's out there
Mm-hmm.
right now. So if you're going down the path of like, hey, I want to do more inside of Fabric, and I like because you're here, so I think you want that type of thing. Do check out this AI challenge. This can really uh, help you advance in that space. There's some
Mm-hmm.
kind of rules that out there. It starts in 3 days and ends. It starts on July 17th and ends on August 14th.
Okay.
Looks like a good challenge.
Mark, thanks for sharing that. I keep seeing it, and I need to go back through. AI is an area I want to definitely improve myself on. I haven't put a lot of time into it, um,
Yeah,
so I appreciate it. Maybe that'll be coming up on a future Friday if I could find some time to do it.
yeah. Soon enough, right?
Okay, so let's do this second post that I found, and then let's go to some of the questions.
Awesome.
So on LinkedIn, Justina mentioned getting started with notebook resources, and so this is the Microsoft documentation on how to use a notebook. It's a little over halfway down where it starts getting into notebook resources. This gift to me gets going a little bit fast. I kind of kept
Just
looking
a
at
little
this
bit.
yeah, kept looking at this last night. And I kept trying to think like, what is this telling me, right? And I saw it when I was working on something the other day, and I didn't include it in any video or whatever. So I was glad that they got the documentation out on this. But let me switch over, and I have a notebook here already. And you can see I have it connected. I was using the same World Cup stuff that we've done before. So you have this icon up here that is now, next to, this is your kind of Lake House Explorer. And this icon is going to be your notebook resources. So they're local to your notebook. And it comes out with this built in, just to kind of build what they have first. You could use this user experience, the UI. We could build a new, why my cursor didn't go there. We could build some new folders. So we'll do it just like what they have on that video. Code, and we'll call it data. And then you could come here. Let's do the data first because this is where it started making sense to me. I'm going to do an upload of a file. They're going to tell you the file limitations. You could click on the learn more. It's going to go, I don't exactly know where it's going to go to. They have to be 50 meg or less, right? So you're just really kind of looking at some things, kind of playing with some stuff. But the PY one is under the code is what I thought was a little bit interesting. We'll get to second. All right, so I'm going to upload this CSV file. And now that's localized to my notebook. And I could just drag this over here, and it just adds the code block for it. What's interesting to me is on this, they're
Wait,
loading
do that
it.
again. That went too quick. What'd you
Okay,
do?
yeah. Let me go ahead and delete this. So I have, once I uploaded it, all I
Uh-huh.
did was select it, drag it, release my button, my mouse, and there's the code.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean that just creates so many reusability patterns that I could think
Yeah.
of, right? Like now we can share common notebooks and even cells for cleansing and cleaning data
Well,
frames,
yeah,
right?
we're gonna get to that in just a second. This is
Oh, okay.
just
Sorry,
the
sorry,
date.
sorry.
This is just the data part, right?
Yeah,
Because you could do the same thing. Say, when I have my Lake House Explorer,
right.
right? If I have my raw files, I could just drag this over as well. But
Mm,
the main difference here
yeah.
is on this version, it's always loading it in as a Spark data frame. On this version, it's loading it in as pandas.
Okay.
Do you know why that's to me it's important, why it's good that they're doing it in pandas?
No, why?
Because when you do data wrangler, wait, I gotta run this. Run both cells. Sorry, my session isn't started, so we're gonna have that 10 seconds rather than Synapse where it's 5 minutes. But this is gonna load it into pandas. And then once we have that, now we can go to data wranglers. Come on. It's thinking, it's gonna find it. I know it's gonna find it. Panda.read CSV. Okay, why it's not finding it, I don't know. But that to me is why I think this is important, right? Because when I started trying to figure everything out, I stopped just dragging it over and loading it as a Spark data frame and started loading things as Panda data frames. So, oh, I see why. Stupid thing. Both, because I ran both cells, DF and DF. DF got overridden. Let me get rid of this cell. Run just this cell again. Now, when I go to launch Data Wrangler, it's going to find my DF data frame, and I'll be able to do all the Data Wrangler type of fun stuff, right? That helps us build out the data cleansing. So let's say I got to.
Well, hang on a second. There's a learning
Sure.
right there, and Stina is mentioning here.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to play with things to learn how they work, right? Like Kevin is a pro. He runs a company. He has many clients. He does a great job at working in data.
Stays up way too late at night messing with things.
Right, and like, and I go through the exact same thing that we just saw Kevin go through, which is, hey, I think it should work like this. Why doesn't it work like this? How do you get it to work? Oh, I see it works like that. So understand that you're not just necessarily going to always just jump in and things are going to just work for you the way you'd want it to. So give yourself that time. Understand that there can be frustrations, and it's not just Kevin. I mean, Steen has pointed out inside the conversation as well. So keep learning. You're doing great. Just keep at it. All right.
Yeah, that definitely. And like I said, I mean, honest truth. Last night, my wife and I had dinner. I made a comment. I said, I got a couple things I got to get ready for tomorrow morning. And, she just looked at me and said, okay, well, if you get done, then we'll go ahead and watch one of our shows. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll be done. It's not all that much. Like an hour and a half later, sorry. She goes, no, I expected it. So, all right. So,
awesome.
Yeah, so this is getting us, just we could bring up a sample file, we can start messing with it, right? We do have some of the other features available where we could just right click and say right to the lake house, and it's going to save it as a Delta table. But the other one that I wanted to show is the code. And I'm going to go back to upload files because this is the one that took me a bit yesterday. And it all made sense as soon as I started kind of getting back through it. But I'm going to load this file called mytest.py, and it's going to bring it up into the workspace. But what I also want to show you, see if I can make this
zoom it.
Yeah, I'm just going to zoom in. Okay. Oh, why did it go away?
You have to click on it when you zoom in.
Yeah. Well, because the way that I'm doing it, my mouse is getting.
Oh.
Where's my mouse at? There we go. Okay. So within this mytest.py, right? So py for Python.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is define basically some functions, right? So that's what the def command is doing, is defining a function for you. So I just have two in here. These are some of the standard settings that we're always using within Microsoft Fabric today, right? It's the ones Microsoft is recommending, so that I have that at the beginning of all of my notebooks. And I thought, well, maybe I should just turn that into a function that I could reuse once I kind of load this up all the time. Then the other is just an example, right? Kind of printing out almost like "Hello World," where we could pass a name in, and it's just going to send it out. So you think about this as like you're defining your own Python module, right? You can put as many functions in here as you want, and then upload them into your notebook, and then load them, and now you got things that you commonly use that's available to you over and over again. Does that kind of make sense, Chris, at this point?
Yeah, 100%. I think so.
So now this is where that GIF is showing again. I'm going to go ahead and put it above it, I hope. Yeah. So all I do is once I have it loaded, all I did was drag it over again. Let me get rid of this because it put it into the same cell, so it looks a little messy. That looks a little bit better to me. Okay. So it puts this code in, which is simply importing from built-in.code.mytest as my test. And then this dir is just like a directory. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see what that's going to output for us. So you see what it's listing out is all of the methods within that module. And you can see at the end, we have our two methods, right? The functions basically that we built in there, right? Again, we love having many words for the same type of thing. So here's greeting, here's standard settings. Okay, great. So I'm going to add another code module here. It's going to say my test, and of course I get the IntelliSense here, dot greeting. I could pass it a string, run that, and you'll see here's our output. So if I had a common transformation that I use and I just want to send a data frame over to it or things like that, I don't have to just keep going to another editor, grab that code cell, copy it in. I could wrap all of that into a .py file or a couple of common py files, upload those files to my code area, load it, and make it a lot easier to reuse code.
Wow, that is fantastic. Because I think one of the things, well, in fact, not I think, I know one of the things that we're going to want to do inside of our companies and our teams is we're going to want to create common code sets like this that we're going to use a variety of different reasons, right? We're going to use for like as we think about going from the bronze to the silver layer, what are the common items that we're going to be putting into place, right? Or we think about what are the common environmental variables, right? Like you just had here, like, okay, hey, we're going to call all of these functions and pull all of these things in. Well, maybe we're going to want to have a block of code text that's going to set stuff up. That's going to be the standards that we're going to work in as a team. So you don't have to always be like, oh, let me rewrite these things over and over again, which could include things like, I don't know, like pausing your notebook after so many seconds of activity or something along those lines, that as you go, you're always following best practices and it becomes easier and easier to work in the space.
Yeah, and then to tie it back to our earlier conversation, right? You might have all of this stored in some common Git repository, right? Whether that's Azure DevOps or GitHub or something like that, that you're sharing across the team, and they just have it synced over. They bring it into their notebooks. The one thing I was hoping for, right? And they don't say it, but I was hoping for it. Is that once I have some code module loaded, that would be just easily shared across notebooks. But you have to upload the file in each notebook because it
Yeah.
is local for that. Maybe something like that is coming. I don't know. Reading some of the comments on the LinkedIn post where I first saw this,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is very common in other tools. They already have this type of thing because there was a couple snarky remarks about that. So, I mean, in the industry, this isn't new, but hey, it's new to Fabric. It for all of us that you know just kind of go, hey, yeah, some of this is Microsoft's going to
Growing
like
pains.
everything, they're gonna I don't want to say catch up, but I want to say catch up, right? Maybe they'll catch up to things that others are doing, right?
We're talking about minimum viable products, right? Like
Yeah,
this is
exactly.
out, it runs, it works great. We're going to enhance all the other features that are most important. They're going to prioritize. So provide that feedback. Was it ideas.fabric.com or Microsoft, or I don't know. I can't be on I can't work at Microsoft because I can't ever remember that URL. So that's the rule. You have to remember the ideas website URL to work at Microsoft, and I can't. So I can't work
That's
there.
good. I
All
see you
right.
have a
So
question
Greg
up.
has a question. As soon as you crack open a notebook, can you put a data engineer on your resume? He's asking for a friend.
Yeah. I would say sure. You know, uh, I put it on my resume 20 years ago before it was even known. So I mean, always, in all serious, put on your resume what you could defend within an interview, right? So you can put anything you want on your resume. I have interviewed a lot of people, and I have found a lot of people put things on their resume that they know nothing about. And then I find some people that don't put enough on their resume when I get in and start talking to them. So,
Well,
yeah.
you have to not just defend in an interview, but I think you also have to be able to figure out how to deliver on that
Mhm.
work once you land the job, right? Like if you're a great salesperson, you could sell ice to an Eskimo, right?
Mhm.
Uh, that doesn't mean you can necessarily know how to make ice, right?
Exactly.
So make sure that whatever you're going to commit to is something that you're going to be able to deliver on. And if you find yourself having overcommitted, well, adjust accordingly, right?
Yep.
Oh, and then as Raphael says, you
That's
just
funny.
list yourself as a data scientist because no one knows what a
It's,
data scientist is anymore. That is,
mhm.
I think potentially the most overused job title on the market today. I was talking to a data scientist. He spends all of his days in Excel. I'm like, oh, how are how, how are you a data scientist? He's like, oh,
Mhm.
I do a data analysis in Excel. I'm like, okay, it's an interesting title.
So I know we had a couple other questions. I don't know
Yes.
if you're able to
Yeah,
capture them.
let's go back to them. And this is why you put a queue in front of your questions because they do get queued up, and then it becomes easy for us to go back to them. And Nisam is asking from LinkedIn, is Microsoft Fabric a free tool for organizations that have premium licenses? How can I calculate the cost if there's usage and subtools that require payment? It's a great question,
Hmm.
Nisam. Kevin, do you happen to have the admin app, or where are you going with this?
Yeah, give me just a second to
Okay.
search.
All right. So
Uh,
there's a few things. I'm pretty sure Kevin's gonna pull up the costing model. So Fabric and Power BI Premium share a couple things in common
mhm.
uh, with them. So if you're familiar with Power BI Premium and how that works, is Power BI Premium provides all of your compute costs for anything that you're trying to do inside of the Power BI space, and basically you get a discounted block of compute that's always available. It runs 24/7, 365. You can't turn it off or on. But you can do anything you want within it. You can do reports. You can distribute the reports to millions of users. You can do data flows, all that stuff into it. And then you buy more compute as you have more needs and you need more computing resources. Okay. Um, that's this. That's the the principle of that is you only want to buy a block of compute so you can manage your budget and be consistent with it. You don't want to have a variable cost associated with how much are you spending in Fabric or how much are you spending on stuff. And so Fabric has taken from that model completely, right? So there's those consistent blocks of compute that you can get, which means as a small company, or a large scale enterprise, you can really plan out and manage how you're going to spend your compute. Additionally, let's say you need more control over what's going on inside of your workspace, and what you're doing. They do have on demand compute nodes that you can spin up to give you that burst stability, that ability to do more. And that allows you to like say, hey, you know what, I need this massive amount for these 4 hours as I'm processing my overnight files, but after that I could shut down that all of that compute, and I don't want to pay for that 24/7, right? So Fabric brings both of these to your world so that you can kind of choose what's right for you and your organization, right? That dynamic scaling, that has some additional cost to it, like it's more expensive per node per use, right? Because you just need it to be ready on demand. So like Microsoft just has to have compute ready for people, versus the paid for capacity, which is just you buy that and it's there, it's always there, it's always up and running, right? Plus you have the additional expense of having to manage and control when things come up, when they go down.
Yeah.
So there's two variable costs there. Then the only other thing I'll mention is there is a storage cost that's currently going to be inside of Fabric. Amir has announced that there's going to be a free amount of storage space that will be available to every company. I don't know what that amount
Yeah, I don't
is.
think it's. If you want to go to my screen, I have the pricing up now.
Oh, sure.
So
Awesome.
yeah, and so here's what the pricing model looks like. As Chris mentioned, right, you're always buying capacities, kind of the same model of what was purchased for Power BI Premium. The difference is this is always going to be purchased through Azure versus the premium. The actual premium capacities were purchased through the O365 Admin Center. There was also the confusion that on the Power BI embedded side, you had those A SKUs or EM SKUs you would buy through Azure. So that's kind of the one thing they're eliminating here. All the capacities for the Fabric side will be on the Azure spend. And so, like Chris mentioned, here's your pay as you go hourly, pay as you go monthly. You could reduce your cost if you could shut down your Fabric capacity for whatever reason. Let's say it's a development one, you're doing only development work on it, you're not serving data sets from the direct lake or whatever, then you could go ahead and shut it down. I haven't tried it, but from what the others that I've seen that I respect out in the socials, they've done it. They said it's very quick to come down and very quick to come up. But in my mind, for a lot of companies, this starting price of 262, is really in a manageable area. Then, as Chris was just getting into, the OneLake storage itself is priced like an Azure Data Lake storage account. From my understanding, it says right here, these are even compatible. The one thing that in conversations that I've heard with Amir recently on different people's live streams, right? Nobody's ever complained on the price of storage to them. So if you're, they have to tell you what it's going to be like, but if you're sitting here kind of going, I don't want to do this because, I'm worried about storage, and you're worried about the wrong thing, right? In this model, you're managing compute, you're not managing storage, right? You could add as much as storage as you want, and it still won't break your bank. Considering that you have a bank, right? But I mean, in general, right? The 90% of your cost is going to be on the compute side. So
Yeah, I wouldn't be terribly scared of your costs per your storage costs. Those are exorbitantly low. Cloud storage costs have been very, very low for a long time. It's kind of like the magic and the glory of the cloud is now we can have compute and we can have storage, and they're completely separated. So you can have a massive amount of storage at a very low cost, and then you can just have the necessary amount of compute that you need to have on that.
And then Raphael just put a comment in at the end, right, about egress, right? So that's this other link right here about bandwidth, right? So egress and ingress. Ingress is the inbound of your data. Cloud storage companies, Microsoft included, typically do not charge for data coming in, right? They want it to come into the platform. It's when you're moving it between regions or out, right? So one of the conversations, I can't remember where I was involved with this, was kind of thinking about this idea that we keep saying OneLake is your OneNote or OneDrive for data, right? And the challenge that comes there is people think about OneDrive and we just keep doing files. We open it, we put it to our browser and stuff like that. We don't think about, hey, the data movement, because actually that's all embedded in OneDrive, right? They took the ingress and egress out. But if you start using your OneLake for that and people keep pulling data back down, you're going to end up with these egress costs, right? Or you move it between regions or whatever. So, you do want to think about the bandwidth pricing. I have seen, companies that have put things in incorrectly, right? And then they kind of start looking at it and go, oh, wait, if we would have just put these two resources in the same region, we'd get rid of all this movement cost, right? So it can add up slowly, right? It's a death by 1,000 cuts, but it can be there.
Yep. Well, and I think Mark actually brings up an interesting question here. Mark is asking, can we import and refresh from OneLake into our Power BI reports and then shut down the capacity? I think
the answer is yes. I haven't officially tested it yet, but that's been a concept that's been in my brain for a while, and I do want to kind of test this out. But if you think about it, go ahead, Chris.
So I know how this works. The entire question is, where are you getting your compute for your reports? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you can spin up a capacity. You can load the data into your bronze. You can do a transformation to your silver. You can do a transformation to your gold. You can then take that data and you can load that into like a PPU model, or you can load that into memory on another capacity. You could you could load that into Pro, right? All of that are separate capacities that are up and running and working. Once that load is complete, you could shut down the capacity that was doing all of your loading and processing. As long as you've loaded it into in memory over in these other places.
Using import mode.
Using import mode. If you have loaded into your gold layer and your model is sitting on using directly copy down to that
to that gold layer,
down to that folder, you have to have compute running on that model in order for it to access those files. Okay. So it has to be, you have to have compute someplace in order to access it. Now, once the files are loaded and created, you don't need more compute on it. But if you're using that auto-generated model that's created with those files they're creating, that's not a model that's someplace else. It's a model that's on that same capacity. Right. So that capacity would have to be up and running at that same time. I hope that makes sense.
So basically, you're using multiple workspaces because the workspace is what's assigned to the capacity. So you're going to have a workspace, a set of workspaces to do the architecture for Chris said first, right? Through your bronze, silver, gold. Then you're going to have another workspace that you're going to assign to either Pro, Premium per user, a different capacity or whatever. And you're going to use import mode. So you're basically going to treat the data within that first set of workspaces. You're going to use that SQL endpoint, right? The SQL connection that you get available for that. And you're going to design your data set just as like you're connecting to any other SQL server. And then once that import runs, sure, you could shut down that other capacity because nothing else is being used on it at that point. I saw somebody ask about how do you turn it off? Yeah.
Yeah. Power Egg was asking hourly runs until you turn it off manually, correct? Yes, that's spot on correct. So you do need to turn those on. Do check out, like, most people are using the Fabric free trial right now. So like, it doesn't matter. It's free, right? Like, hey, Katie bar the door. Go check out the admin app on your trial capacity so you can see what's going on, see what that performance is like. Because I know I had some stuff, like I looked at it the other day and I'm like, wow, I've got some things that are just always running. What the heck is that? Like, oh, I have several notebooks I created. I just never thought to turn off. So they just run, right? Like until like whatever. So that's something hopefully Microsoft will come along and adjust.
And we covered that in, I think, last week's episode, right? We talked a little bit about the admin, the capacity admin. The other thing is, like his statement explicitly calls out manually turning it off. Yes, and that is the simplest way that you could do it, getting into the Azure portal. But there's these templates out there, Azure Resource Management, or called ARM, that you can then schedule it to come down, right? So if you know that you never need it between midnight and 5 in the morning, because that's when you're finally going to get a little bit of sleep, right? You can schedule it to come down during those times, and then you could even schedule it to come back up, right? So think about that, of automating it, and that's something that's probably on my list for a future episode, to show people how to use those ARM commands and do the resource to turn it off and on, type of thing. So
awesome. Oh, hey, and we're going to go on to a couple other questions here, because I think we've got 12 minutes and we've got 4 questions. So I think that's
sounds like perfect. We're only getting through questions today. That's great.
Before we hit the next one, if you could do us a favor, hit like on YouTube, or like hit the hearts and all the other stuff over on LinkedIn. All of that stuff really helps with awareness of people seeing this on feeds and whatnot, and helps bring people here so that we can get more people participating in this community. So really appreciate that one. All right, let's ask, Jay Gary has asked a question. Has Microsoft made any indication of whether we'll be able to create calculation groups while leveraging Direct Lake? This is a must to prevent measure redundancy. Kevin, have you heard anything along those lines?
I can't say that I've heard anything, but this is not going to be something that is just because of Fabric, right? What we do know is Microsoft is enabling calculation groups with editing the data model on the web, right? And they have talked about getting to really close to what the desktop app could do, right? So what my expectation is we will see, if we see that for what the default data set. I'm also going to kind of assume we're talking the default data set here. If we're going to see that for the default data set, we're going to see that come out from the data modeling capability that's on the web. There has been some comment, like right now you cannot connect to the default data set using the XMLA endpoint. So you couldn't use like a tool like Tabular Editor or something to change it. I've seen some comments saying, that's going to be coming, right? So then that's what would allow you to do it. Have you heard anything different, Chris?
Yes, I have heard, not through official channels, but through one-on-one conversations, that I don't believe are NDA. So I believe this is fine to talk about. And if not, I'm terribly
It was
sorry.
nice having you.
Yeah, it was nice to be part of the MVP program. But I believe what I have heard and what has been said multiple times in places is that we will have XMLA
Hmm.
connectivity that we'll be able to publish and do everything with DirectLake and do everything
Hmm.
that is so any modeling techniques and that you use and manage, you'll be able to use that tabular editor to update
Hmm.
manage your models. You'll be able to convert existing models to using DirectLake. All of that stuff is going to be supported, and I understand it's going to be supported very soon. Um, I was really hoping. I don't know if everyone saw July updates for Power BI were out late
Yeah.
last night, so I watched the video today. I was hoping to see that there. It wasn't. So, I mean, my guess is if not August, it will be September or sooner.
Yeah, and I do think it's going to end up being multiple paths, right? And so today's
Yeah.
episode, everything ties back to Wednesday talking about Git, right? What probably will happen is once they
Mm-hmm.
solidify or harden what that default data set looks like, everything behind it, I would expect that that will start getting into the same mode as other data sets that when you do the Git integration, right?
Yep.
So think about what that process would look like is you add your repository, your Git repository to it. Now that's how you sync your code back down to your machine. You could use tabular editor. You could probably even use
Mm-hmm.
desktop or whatever, save it to it, right? Things just have to get in sync between both development teams, and that would be probably the preferred method to do everything. So
Yep.
that's it's definitely coming. I think they just got a lot of things that are in preview and getting going on it. Yeah,
It's
it's
coming.
definitely got to be coming.
Yep. All right. Umbreen has two questions
Okay.
for us. For her first question, she's asking, how is Microsoft Fabric different from Databricks and Snowflake? Uh, Kevin, do you want to take a crack at that one?
This is not going to be an area that I could talk a lot about, but I can kind of give what I know. I haven't worked a lot with Databricks, and I haven't worked at all with Snowflake.
So
So
I could
okay.
talk about this then. Let me give this one a shot. So uh, Databricks and Snowflake are two separate ways of approaching a common problem. All right. Snowflake is your classic. How do I have a data warehouse, but I want to have it for the cloud and designed for the cloud, right? So Snowflake is amazing at your classical Inman, centralized data model, even some data marts and stuff like that. It has been, the founders of Snowflake basically took everything they knew about writing and building warehouses, and they came from IBM, and they came from IBM Netezza, and they came from Teradata, and I mean, like the engineers there are like rewrote data warehousing for the cloud, and they did it in
Mhm.
Snowflake. Okay, um, so that's where Snowflake comes in, and the parallel really to that in Fabric is the SQL DW space, or that the data warehouse piece that's in Fabric. Okay, Databricks, on the other hand, took the hey, we want to use uh, scalable, compute and separate storage to be able to manage our data ecosystem. And so Databricks kind of came at it from the, hey, we should create a lake house and we should have both structured and unstructured information inside of our content, and we should manage and work with it there, right? Allowing us to scale dynamically, our compute and our storage, and we're going to leverage notebooks, and data scientists and data engineers are going to be able to work in the same space. And um, so Databricks really comes in and plays in on the lakehouse side of Fabric with the notebooks and the data science
Mhm.
aspects of it. Um, so both Databricks and Snowflake have different aspects that are inside of Fabric.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's aspects of the Fabric solution that you would use to address or to compete with either one of those different solutions. Right. And then, if you look at both of them, they all have some very lightweight reporting capabilities. But almost everyone, doesn't use their native reporting. They use, a third-party tool or a different tool like Power BI or Tableau or Click to do the reporting on top of that. So hopefully that answers that question.
So there's definitely a Venn diagram to where there's overlaps and there's differences, right? So it's knowing what you want or what you need from different places. Yeah.
And then Imbrina's, her second question, her follow-up question is, can I integrate my existing workloads from Synapse to Microsoft Fabric? And the answer is, of course you can. You should not yet. The guidance that we gave last week, and I think even we talked about the week before, is because you need everything you have on Synapse Analytics is your production stuff, I'm presuming. Like, you need that to run and operate. Keep that running and operating there. But most of the code and the things that you have on Synapse Analytics can be easily ported into Microsoft Fabric. Today, I would highly recommend you keep the stuff in Synapse, but run it in Fabric so you can see how it works, what challenges you have, maybe where you're going to see performance improvements, because I've actually seen quite a bit of that, right? And then at some point in time in the future, when Fabric goes GA, and you've realized, I've had 3 months of these things running in parallel and I don't have any issues on Fabric, then it's time to deprecate and cut over to using Fabric, right? But I would kind of plan that out and be very strategic as to when you do that cut.
Yeah, and it's just how much risk you're willing to take at any given time, right? Because the other thing is, maybe you don't want to ever move what you already have developed on Synapse, right? But you're going to use the shortcut feature to bring the data into Fabric to do something new with it, right? Don't always move to the new and shiny just because, right? Always have a reason.
Right.
And if you're not, this is one thing I love doing on a lot of my projects is when I have code that's working, even though I made a decision to go to some other either set of standards on the code or something like that, I don't want to just go change it just to change it. But if I'm going to touch it, then I'm going to start implementing the new thing, right? Or the new changes. So if it's running, it's working, right? And you want to move it because there's a cost factor. Maybe you are going to get something cheaper for moving it that way. Great. Do it the way Chris just said. Run it in parallel, look at it, analyze your costs. You haven't, you're gonna have to pay double for a little bit, right? Just to do that. But do it under trials, understand that it's going to work. And then maybe look at new projects, new things, use shortcuts, use other techniques, because that's exactly why shortcuts, or you could use the whole file path to connect to your Azure data lake storage or whatever that's in Synapse, right? But don't do it just because.
All right, Kevin, we actually have a backlog of questions that we're going to get into. So we're going to do a lightning round real quick here.
Ready.
I'm going to answer one, then you answer the next one. We get one word or we get like one sentence answers, nothing more than that, but we're going to get through all these questions here. So here we go. You start first. I'll read it. You answer this question, and then I'll show what you read. Okay. Raj is asking, just on with the mention of data flows. What's going on with Gen 1? Slightly concerned to see them as legacy. Will they be automatically converted to Gen 2?
I don't expect they'll be converted automatically to Gen 2 because Gen 1 still needs to exist over on the Power BI side, right? You could use data flows just in Power BI Pro with the cheaper license. So no, I don't expect them. They'll both exist long term. Different use cases.
Okay. You read the question.
You mentioned separating out medallion by workspace. I've seen other posts that suggest using different lake houses. Are there different methods to organizing these levels?
Yes, you do that on how you want to manage your compute and your spend. Sometimes you're in a big organization that wants to do that. Other times you're not. Keep your solution as sophisticated as need to be, but as simple as you possibly can make.
Just think of how you want to organize. Yeah.
Yep. Greg is asking, how's DuckDB different from Databricks and Snowflake? How do vector databases like Pinecone fit in the mix? Never mind. I'm going back to my spreadsheet.
I'm going to go with just a simple, it depends. Chris or Greg, honestly, I don't know. I haven't messed with DuckDB, all that other type of stuff. Maybe we
Talk to
need Mim
Mim.
on as a
Mim
guest to
knows the
answer
answer.
Greg's question.
Yeah. Mim doesn't do live streams. He's home. So follow Mim on Twitter.
Yes. Okay, Chris, how should we schedule our notebooks? Data pipeline, or does Fabric have other ways to schedule notebooks?
Great question. Notebooks can be scheduled individually. Inside the notebook options, you can click on schedule, or there's an option to schedule it. You can choose by the minute, by the hour, or by the minute, by the day, or by the month, I think are the levels. But you could do that on a one-off basis. All right. I think we hit all of the questions, so we've cleared that
Great.
out. Woo! Well done. Thank you guys all so much. Kevin, thank you. Any parting words?
No, this was fun. We didn't get to the topic that we wanted to, but hey, that's okay. We got it in reserve for another time.
That's exactly right. You guys have a great day. We really appreciate everyone joining us. Peace.
Peace. Bye-bye.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.